Or at least we think so. We'll confirm that. So Brian and Matthias again, High Tide on your left, Dredge on your right. Taking a look at this Dredge build. This is a Dredge build that does have lands, 12 of them, 4 City of Brass, 4 Cephalid Coliseum, 4 copies of Gemstone Mine. You've got your Breakthroughs, your Faithless Students, your Careful Studies, your Lion's Eye Diamond. So this is a super powered version of Dredge. As far as sweet cards that can be brought back via Dread Return, Gristlebrand, and Flamekin Zealot.
So for those of you maybe not that familiar with Legacy, the way that High Tide works is it plays a signature card, High Tide, alongside a bunch of island, and uses various untapping of the land effects, Candelabral Taunt, which you see play, perhaps Turnabout and so forth, to generate a lot of mana, and then cast Time Spiral, which allows you to, again, draw a bunch of cards, make additional mana with your lands that are generate so much more mana now. And then you can eventually set up a Storm Kill with Brain Freeze sometimes. You can use Blue Sun Zenith to deck your opponent, whatever. But at a certain point, you just generate a ton of mana because all of your islands tap for so much mana, and you have so many different ways to untap them.
Matthias casting a Preordain here. So we'll see how he wants to organize these cards. He's looking at Sensei's Divine Top and a Ponder. He's playing a version with tops this go around. He said it's a little bit different than what he maybe is a little bit used to. He's going to draw, looks like a copy of Forcible. Has a Merchant Scroll, has a Time Spiral. Maybe he's just looking for a High Tide and then going to try to go off the next turn. We'll see. But for Matthias, I know he loves this deck. He's played some High Tide Mirrors against Feline Longmore just for funsies. I don't know whose definition of fun that is, but it's definitely his. And he just loves High Tide. He's obviously a math teacher and very proficient at math, so he looks at this as just one big math problem as he's going to cast Merchant Scroll. It's a lot of fun for him. And so far, 2-0-2. This is game number 2. He is down a game to Kittleson in his Dredge deck.
And Dredge is a really tough deck to beat if you don't have the appropriate sideboard hate.
Yeah, if he has a Cunning Wish package, which he does, one of the cards he can Cunning Wish for that really blow them out is Ravenous Trap. I've seen that happen before, but it doesn't look like he has any of those in his sideboard.
He has a Surgical Extraction, but that's not nearly the same kind of weapon.
No. And I have seen some crazy things happen where a Ravenous Trap has been wished for in response to a whole lot of dredging. But that's not going to happen this go-around. You see Hunt is going to try to figure out exactly what he's supposed to search for here. Kittleson going to count the cards in his deck. You got to believe there's some Ichorids down there in the graveyard, and we'll see what kind of action he has on his upkeep and his draw step there. If you've never seen Dredge in action, you just put all those cards out there because all those cards are his graveyard, but they're essentially his hand at this point.
Yeah, the graveyard is an extension of the hand for a Dredge player.
It's actually pretty sweet to watch. And Dredge kind of do its thing. Now, during the Open Series thus far, we haven't seen Dredge really have much of an impact.
Yeah, well, the problem is there's been I think in my mind, a big just reseeding of how much that deck is represented because Deathrite Shaman is a 4-of in a lot of decks. The way that Dredge used to work is your game ones were almost a free win against everyone, and then you had to beat some egregious sideboard hate card in one of the games, whether it's Leyline of the Void, Tormod's Crypt, whatever. The way it works now is almost all of your opponents, or not almost all of them, but a lot of them actually have a relevant way to interact with you game one, and that's just made the deck significantly less powerful. The upside is, because of Deathrite Shaman, people no longer feel the need to sideboard a bunch of copies of Leyline of the Void in exactly the same way they used to.
You see 6 cards going to get turned over here, among them a copy of Narcomoeba, so that's going to come into play. Gargoyle Ritual is going to go back to the grip. You saw 2 Ichorids come into play as well. Of course, at the beginning of your upkeep, if it's in your graveyard, you can remove a black creature, which Brian was able to do twice. 3-1 little hasty poo, and when at the end of the turn, you sacrifice it, and that obviously triggers quite well with Bridge from Below. So a very valuable engine in this deck. Really, really good against the control decks when you're trying to grind them out, too.
Yeah, and if you're watching Brian here sacrifice his Cephalid Coliseum, this actually allows him to dredge for a ton because he can get back a Grave Troll, mill 6, get back a Grave Troll, mill 6, and get back potentially another Grave Troll, mill 18 cards over.
He's already turned over 12, another Narcomoeba here. And that'll come into play at the end of all of this dredging because he's got one more to go. He just needs to figure out exactly which card he wants to dredge. Again, he already has a Grave Troll in the grip, and he's just going to draw a card. And so now he needs to discard 3. And it would be very easy for him to just discard all 3 Grave Trolls. That's where he wants them anyway, so that's where those will go. In comes the Narcomoeba now. As that resolves after the Cephalid Coliseum resolves. So, of course, he has to resolve the draw 3 and then discard 3 first. Does that, resolves an Narcomoeba trigger. That comes in. And now we move forward.
And it looks like Matthias has already used his Surgical Extraction, I believe, taking care of Brian's Stinkweed Imps.
Obviously, that did him a lot of good.
Well, it might have, but now we're here.
This looks like Cabal Therapy is going to be cast here by Kittleson. 3 zombies are going to come in. Looks like Matthias is going to cast a brainstorm in response and try to hide some things. Just think maybe if I get one more turn, I could maybe win.
Well, we already know that he has Time Spiral. So if he has a High Tide as well hanging out and he can hide those cards, then he can actually go off next turn.
So Matthias does resolve his brainstorm. You see Force of Will, Brainstorm, and an island. So Cabal Therapy, pick a card. You name Force of Will, you hit. So it looks like it's going to be time to Dread Return here. And that's an extension of the hand, as he's either going to go get Gristlebrand or Flame Kinzel and end this game. Matthias knows it, and he concedes the game. Brian Kittleson with Dredge moves on to 4-1. Matthias Hunt picks up his first loss this weekend. But